Welcome back to The Favorite Teacher, a series where I interview people who have become favorite teachers of their audience by creating great educational content online. And today I have Kieran with me, who creates great content in the space of digital transformation. So, Kieran, do you want to give a quick introduction?
Yeah, Luke, my name's Kieran. I've been in business and technology and publication and content creation and everything else for about the last 20, 30 years. I create content all the time. I am an ex-teacher, so maybe I'm a teacher's pet of my own self. Maybe that's not a possible thing, but I create content all the time. It's a really important part of, me branding myself and also my business. Interestingly, my business has come out of content. So we look forward to talking to you about that today.
Awesome. So I love teachers. Emma was a teacher in her previous life too, so that's a big part of it. And little fun fact here, I actually started studying education in college, and then I decided to switch to business because I realized I didn't want to be a teacher, but I like the idea of teaching in the world of business. So I can totally appreciate that. So in your business specifically, who are your students? Who are you teaching with the content that you're creating?
Yeah, so look, I create a lot of content on AI, automation, and digital transformation. You need that tool set to allow a business to actually digitally transform, as well as change management and everything else. So those are the key topics. I write extensively everything, how to do it, how not to do it, risk, governance, you name it, examples in every case study or every industry that you can imagine. My audience are business functional leaders or C-suite or board members. So I'm aiming for the upper echelons of the firm who make the decision around whether they digitally transform or not, where they put their technology money, and where they hire their consulting expertise.
Awesome. So there's a lot to come out with when it comes to digital transformation, lots of different topics, pretty complex things too. I see behind you, you had your book and your books that you've written. So that's one way you're teaching, but I guess what are the different channels, what are different ways that you reach your audience through educational content? How do you break down those big topics of digital transformation in a very easy to digest way?
Yeah, well, that comes down to a mixture of things, James, which is you're quite right. There are different channels. So I have a couple of different books, which are, simple to read, no BS managers guides to organizational digital transformation and generative AI for business. And I have another one coming out in the next numbers of months around intelligent automation as a skill set or as a tool or as a function. They are meaty topics. They are big. But as someone once said, how do you eat an elephant? And the answer is, well, ideally don't, but the answer is, just one chunk at a time. So I break it down into language that people can understand. I don't try and use technical language. I do when I'm talking to techies, but not to business people. That's not to suggest that they're less technical. In part, they are. It's more a case of actually, I want a particular business outcome. I can use all of these technologies or methods or models to transform the business. Now turn it into a language that I will most receive. So the books are one thing. I adore writing, very simple articles that are very digestible in 6 or 10 minutes. I do small carousels. I do videos. I do podcasts. You've a different style of audience. Remember, a lot of people are very visual, then you've auditory, then you've kinesthetic, and then everybody else in between. So I create different content for each of those different mediums, and I put it out on LinkedIn, my own websites, Twitter, Buzzsprout, Spotify, YouTube, anything and everything that I can possibly get as content-wise and publication-wise, I will do it. And the real key trick of this, because that can sound overwhelming at times, is what I try and do is create a pyramid of content. So for example, if I do an interview, I will take an image of the interview itself and the person. I'll announce that I'm doing it. I will produce a primary video. I will then chop that video down into smaller snippets. I will post each of the snippets and advertise the main video. I will probably turn the video into an article of some shape, form, or other. I might write other articles around it, and then I might do polls, which people are quite into these days, and other smaller snackable pieces of content to allow as wide a variety as audience to consume as much or as little as they want, but bring them into what I would describe as my ecosphere. So everything that I produce points or hyperlinks to something else, so that once folks are in, they can jump around, work at their own pace, but stay within my content area, so that the person they see as the expert teacher in this space is actually me, and they don't disappear off to someone else.
I love that you already kind of are seeing those tips in with the audience here. And I'm a huge fan of repurposing content, like you're saying too. Taking one idea and having kind of like the macro version of it and the micro version of it and thinking the different ways you break that down. And you bring up a good point too, from a teaching perspective, it allows you to actually teach better because people do, consume content in different ways. and or they need to hear the same message a couple of different times to actually remember it and take it home. And it kind of brings up another question I want to ask you too. With your topics of things like generative AI and other kind of deeper level technical things, you mentioned that you don't really get super technical with what you're doing from a content perspective. So how do you as an educator tackle that, that really tough job of taking complex ideas and then boil them down into more simple ideas that it's easy to consume for your audience?
Yeah, well, let me talk to that in two parts. So I have been head of data science, a head of intelligent automation, head of operations, data analytics, and everything over the years. So I do have those conversations with techies all of the time. That's part of my consulting and advisory work. And I need to speak in the language that they use every day to allow me to be understood by them. By the same virtue, James, as I come across business people, they're speaking in business language, subtly different than technical language, subtly different than financial language. But I'm drawing back from the technology because ultimately I have a business objective to achieve, or a business outcome, whatever you want to call it. I understand through conversation what is it that they're trying to do. And then I will turn what can be at times very complex and very technical technologies into smaller, easily digestible items to allow them to understand the power of technology. So let me give you an example. If I work in a membership business, one of my key things is A, to attract members, and B, primarily to retain members, because it does cost more money to go out and get new clients. You might as well keep the ones you've got. If I translate that from business words, in other words, I want to keep my customers and I want to get them to, within reason, spend as much money as they can to stay as long as possible, what I'm actually talking about is improving customer lifetime value. That makes sense to the business, but when you turn that into an algorithm for a technical team, it means something, you hope the same or something else. But I want to grow my business. I want to sell more. I want to retain more. How do I do that? I want to keep customers over their lifetime value for longer. Okay, well, what do I do? Well, partly it is running AI models. I never use that phrase in terms of non-technical. It's about, using mathematical modeling. It's using retention and it's using AI. It's using generative AI, or whatever language I can stay up as high as possible, I will do, so that they go, okay, so I now know the technology or the tool or the method or the model that I need to go and ask my technical team about. And here's enough information for me to be able to communicate to a techie or a data scientist or an IT person what it is that I need. And then I blur the lines a little bit, because someone in a data science role will understand the word retention analytics. They will understand words like customer lifetime value, whereas actually, they don't need a business person to talk about, decision trees, linear regression, or any other type of mathematical model. So as long as I'm talking in the language that the business understands, and business people are clever people, I'm not dumbing it down to be, A, B, and C, or 1, 2, and 3 in a book, but just getting them the language, getting them what they're comfortable with, translating that into the tech, and then talking about, well, look, you can work out your customer lifetime value, or who is your best client, by running some retention analytics, customer lifetime value analytics. Or what you can do is, once you understand what those good customers look like, you can run some looky-likey analytics. In other words, you identify the patterns and the behaviors and the values of those good customers, and you just go out and find more. And here's how you go and do it. So very simple language, but not so simple as to be patronizing or not understood. And then I talk about something called operational efficiency, because that is, again, the language of the business. We talk about automation, intelligent automation, and then you break that down away from the technologies into, well, look, we have fingers, so clickety-click, that's robotic process automation. We have eyes, well, that's vision technology. We have ears, well, and voice, well, that's chatbot technology. And again, decisioning technology, we're back to AI as well. So as long as I'm relating it to things that they understand, making it understandable, breaking it down far enough so that they get the concept, but not far enough so it's patronizing or silly, then everybody tends to get it. And then, as you said, I put that content out in multiple different ways, multiple different patterns, rinse, repeat the same key messages, because believe it or not, the secret sauce is the secret sauce. It doesn't matter the technology, and people enjoy reading at that level without being patronized or confused.
Yeah, that's awesome. And clearly your teacher showing there of knowing your students and getting at their level and speaking their language. Because I think that is super important, that, no matter what industry you're in, because a lot of people are selling complex products or services, really knowing your student is how you can create the best educational content, right? And knowing who you're creating that content for.
100%.
So with your content, you obviously spend a lot of time creating it. How has it affected your business, and how has it impacted your ability to grow?
Yeah, it's interesting because I have a lot of fun creating content. My favorite thing is to sit and I sit Saturday, Sundays because I'm so busy talking to clients during the week writing, and it's a passion. So it doesn't feel like work when I'm doing it. I actually have to control myself because I get lost down corners, hyping or linking from article to article to research piece to research piece. But it is time consuming. So that's why when we mentioned earlier on about the repurposing of content, you have to be very clever about it. Otherwise, how you would spend 5 days a week creating content and 2 days a week potentially delivering some value to your actual clients. So it goes back to that, take the original video, break it down, turn it into polls and bios, and use technology. So for example, you can use v.io as an application, or ChatGPT, to take an audio, transcribe it automatically, use other generative AI technologies or free websites like Unsplash to get a visual to go in front of your graphic. You can use ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Bing bot, whatever it is. You can suddenly start typing some prompts and say, look, I want to post this particular piece of content out. You can upload the article. Here's what I want to produce. Can you write me, a really great social media post for LinkedIn? My audience type is this. What I want them to do is this. And can you please suggest some hashtags? Would you write me a meta description and something else? So I enjoy the content. I repurpose it a lot. I use the tools that are widely available and reasonably cheap to do, transcriptions and everything else, cut, slice, dice. And I also use the tools to help me with posting. And then once I've done all that, I tend to put it out there. I don't spend a lot of time looking at analytics because I know my idea is I don't want, thousands and thousands of people. I just want the people who really enjoy consuming my type of content to consume it. So my content is not about volume, although I do post 6-7 days a week, believe it or not. My content very much is about quality content. So I want to be known as a thought leader in my space, and therefore producing better, richer, more research content that better addresses the needs that I know are in the market. That tends to be the bits that resonate with the small number of people that I want to talk to, because you can talk to 100,000 people, 1 million people, but if they won't buy anything from you, and that's your job, to create content to allow you to advertise your business and get people to recognize you as an expert and want to talk to you, then it makes no sense. I would rather 100 people consume my content who would buy my services and come back later and enjoy it and want more of it.
Yeah, and I'm admittedly in the same boat as you, where I don't spend a lot of time looking at the analytics and the impressions and the data from that perspective, because it's, you said it exactly right. Like, you want 100 of the right people consuming your content, not 100,000 of the random people on the internet. Because who's actually going to buy from you, right? It's quality versus quantity, and this is kind of where that sales kind of analogy comes in too. If you cold call 10,000 of the wrong people, it's not going to matter, right? But if you call the right person, the one person that picks up has a big contract for you, that's all that matters. And I think that's something that's really important to think about. And I see a big mistake when people start creating content is they go after the impressions and those vanity metrics. And rightly so, because that's all you see, right? That's every single platform throws those metrics at you as a way to kind of chase them. But creating quality content is much more important. So what were you going to say?
Yeah, no, exactly to that. The temptation is at the beginning when you're desperate to get clients. Everybody can buy my product or service. They can't. They literally can't and won't. And therefore, having an idea of the audience that you want to buy your platform, your product, your service, or whatever else is really key. And when you're writing, focusing on that audience and going, well, will they actually find this valuable or not? What is the takeaway or the insights that they're going to take? What is the value that I'm creating? So as long as you have that person or persons, the ICPs, the ideal client profiles, in your mind's eye as you're creating any piece of content, and then do ask yourself that, will it add value or is it just noise? If you are very, very disciplined, you'll create good content that people will enjoy and consume. And whilst it might be lovely to get, 300 likes or 300,000 views or something else, and there's nothing wrong with that, because that might expose you to a wider audience, and numbers of those may go, actually, I'm your person. But it's much more mentally reassuring and a lot safer and a lot less damaging to go, look, I only need 100 clients. These are the ICPs that I need to talk to. I'm going to create the content that I know they will enjoy. And every time I do it, I'll run my eye down it and say, look, did this deliver value for them? And it is that consistent growing message. And I'm bringing along the journey that I know they need to be brought along. And if you can do that, you've done well. Get
Yeah.
but better, richer clients.
No, 100%. And I like that you brought up the ICP and that persona side of things, because when I'm creating content, I write to that person, right? I think of that person as I'm creating it so that it really engages them at a deeper level too. So last quick question for you, and you kind of just gave this too, but if someone is looking at getting started and they want to become that favorite teacher and that thought leader in their industry, what would be the one big tip you'd recommend for them to get started?
Yeah, mine is give yourself some forgiveness. When I started out, James, it was, oh, I can't do a podcast. I haven't got the right lighting equipment. I haven't got the right camera. Oh my goodness, I'm sitting in the wrong spot. It was excuses. It was paranoia. Will people like it? Won't they like it? So my biggest lesson, the same with my first article, the same with my first post, the same with my first webinar, and the same with my first podcast or whatever else. I just say, look, I'm going to accept that some people will like my content, and I'm going to accept that some people won't. If I put it out there, that's fine. Everybody has a right to an opinion. And if I listen to the opinions really carefully, I learn something and then adjust the content and refine it over time, because every day you should be learning, educating, and listening to learn yourself. But give yourself that forgiveness. And mine was, look, after a number 50 podcast, it'll be great. After I chair my 50th event, it'll be wonderful. After I write my 50th article, it'll be absolutely fine. Once I gave myself that forgiveness and I wrote and I listened to the feedback and I rinsed and repeated and refined and used tools like Grammarly and others to try and help me with my writing style, everything fell into place. Now I'm more than comfortable writing 3 or 4 really good articles on a Saturday, because I've got the tooling and I've got the confidence, I've got the capability and the writing style and the things around me. And I don't have the mental pressure that I put on myself right at the very beginning. Once I relax into that, now I'm focused on the ICP, focused on adding value to their particular day, week, month, life. And I have everything rocking and rolling. And thank goodness people are responding really well, because they're consuming the content. They're coming to me for advisory, consulting, or masterclass services. They're buying the books, they're listening to the podcast, they're watching the YouTube, and the numbers are going up gradually in the background, but for the right customer. And if you're not the right customer, I will prune as well. But give yourself the forgiveness, go and write, seek some feedback, refine, listen, rinse, repeat until you're very good at it. And then don't forget, you always want to stay ahead. So I create, and this is my second piece of advice, after giving yourself a bit of forgiveness, put yourself under a little bit of pressure to go, I now want to be the very best in my market. So as long as you are constantly working out new ways to grow and improve and drive your content forward, you'll always stay relevant, and you will always be that one step ahead of everyone else and be the go-to person that people go to. But first, forgiveness, then you can aim for expertise.
Perfect. That's solid gold advice. I think one of the biggest hurdles for people getting started is the emotional side of things and getting over that sticky feeling of doing it. So that's awesome advice to give yourself forgiveness. So to leave things, can you tell people where they can find you and how they should connect with you?
Yeah, one of the biggest ones is go to my own brand website. So KieranGilmurray.com. You'll have to spell that, James, put it in the writing. Go to that. I'm constantly in LinkedIn, where I produce all of my content and post it out there in some shape, form, or other. But if you want to see me and hear me, go on X, go on Buzzsprout, go on Spotify, go on YouTube, because I'm on each of those channels to allow a different audience type to consume my content, my services in a different way of their choosing.
That sounds good. I will definitely leave links down in the description to check out. So thanks again, Kieran. Appreciate it.
Delighted. I wish everyone every success.